Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today our group, who are me, myself, Faiz, Afif, Rizwan and Ashraf, will present topic 4, which is Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad was a leading proponent of an Asian values in 1990s when he was a leader of Malaysia. Discuss features of Asian values as a political ideology advocated by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Okay, I will go first. I will go through in introduction and the first features under political ideology in Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad era. Okay, according to R.S. Milner and Dan K. Mauzi, Mahathirism or Asian values as a political ideology is not a guide to Mahathir's thought or actions. Rather, Mahathir's thoughts and actions are a guide to constructing Mahathirism. Mahathirism is an exercise in allocating thoughts into logical categories with the aim of achieving intellectual satisfaction and understanding. Okay, for the first features under Mahathirism or political ideology in Tun Dr. Mahathir era is universalism. Okay, what is universalism? Okay, universalism influenced by the adherents of natural law and liberal individualism and embodied in international human rights law, such as Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, rests on the proposition that the human condition is unique and that all human beings possess certain inalienable rights. The international community claims the right to the just states by international standards. The international community thus attempts to hold governments to the human rights standards enumerated in the International Bill of Rights. Theorists explain the concept of universal human rights by referring to the meanings of the term universal and by as a meaning the history behind universalist theory. In general, J. Donnelly in 1989 interprets universal to mean that no institution or person anywhere may take away another person's human rights. So that's all for me.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. So today I will present to you about the cultural relativism. So basically what cultural relativism is the viewing, the belief, value and practice of culture from its own viewpoint. So another way to say this is that an individual person's belief and activities should be understood by others in terms of that person's own culture. It is prominent, this idea as prominent in all social science and is especially important when studying other culture. It's generally an attempt to avoid ethnocentrism or judging another culture or solely by the value and standard of your own personal culture, and it's particularly helpful when trying to avoid culture in research in sociology. An example of this is in French people drink wine with basically every meal, and sometimes they even allow children to drink wine. Now if you are viewing this from an ethnocentric point of viewing in terms of the US culture, that seems outlandish and maybe even morally wrong. But if you have viewed this practice in terms of French culture and custom, and it is perfectly fine and to them doesn't cause any irreparable harm. So another example that I have up here for you of cultural relativism is this cartoon. So if you are from US culture, you are probably pretty familiar with our view of the way certain Islamic Muslim women dress, and you are probably also familiar with US standard of dress, particularly for women. And this cartoon kind of sum up cultural relativism nicely, because most of these women are actually being heterocentric. They are viewing the other woman closely in terms of their own cultural belief and practice. So the woman, I'm just going to call her American for the purpose of the explanation. The American woman in the bikini walking down the street look at the Muslim woman in her dress and say everything is covered but her eyes. What acromal dominate culture. So she is viewing that women's clothing shows us a product for, excuse me, through the lens of her own American culture, which does not fit the culture that woman is a part of. And the Muslim woman is looking back at the American woman and saying nothing covered but eyes, what acromal dominate culture. So she is also being exocentric. And another way to look at cultural relativism is to say that an individual belief and activity should be understood by others in terms of their individual own culture. So thank you. That is my all presentation.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Ahmad Faiz, and I'm going to talk about the next point, that is anti-Western imperialism. During the Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad administrations as the 4th Prime Minister of Malaysia, he had advocated the Asian values as the rejection of Western values in the Asian society. The idea of Asian values in Tun Dr. Mahathir can be seen from his manifestation in the changing orientations of his administrations. This idea is called the Mahathir model, which means how Mahathir thinks and his philosophies. Mahathir claimed that there were Western pressures on developing countries, including Malaysia, over human rights and democratizations intended to cause instability, economic decline, and poverty. He also said that the Western has long history of human rights violations and has hardly been a paragon of democracy and justice. As according to Dr. Mahathir, there is a sharp contrast between Western values and Asian values, as the Western values tend towards the individualisms, while the Asian values more towards the collectivism. That means that the Asian society value the community values, so it's not suitable for the Asian society to absorb the Western values. Therefore, from Mahathir's perspective, there is a need to get rid of the West values to protect the harmony, values, and culture through the preservation of Asian values. Mahathir government also exploit this reason to legitimize its control over the local media. The government also exercised its power to strengthen the media law, particularly in printing presses and publication acts, and to control the local media companies as well as foreign publications. However, they are unable to control the flow of information from the internet. Mahathir was also critical to a role played by civil society movement, especially human rights non-governmental organization, and accused them as agents of Western powers. He argued that the activities of movement in civil society that tend to meddle in politics should be curbed as they clearly aim to weaken the government authorities and do not contribute to the public goods. And that is all from me.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahmad Ashraf. As for the Asian community, the majority is alwames come first. We can see in Malaysia, for example, we have our own majority and minority group. For example, Malay as the majority, and Chinese and Indian is for the minority. We can see here, as we can see, Malay have the biggest right as the majority. They often have the biggest right, and then to compare to others group, which is Chinese and Indian, which is the minority, they have slightly smaller right to be compared to the Malay group. As for the individual, individual and the minorities, they still can use their rights, but cannot in a way, cannot harmful toward the majority. As for the personal freedom, on the other hand, does not justify the right, the action to ignore the community interest. In Asia, individuality is valued differently than in the West. Mahdi once claims that personal freedom must be limited to achieve political stability and the economic success. For Asian culture, we still know the importance of personal freedom. They just do not they just did value it highly as the universalist and Western liberal, according to Joseph Chan of University of Hong Kong Department of Politics and Public Administration.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Afif Hakimi and I'm from KAM 1104B. So today I would like to continue the discussion about the other features of Asian value as a political ideology advocated by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, which is strong authority. Under the Mahathir model, it emphasizes on the education and ethics, which is based on Asian value through the implementations of policy such as the Look East policy. This is the manifestation from Tun Dr. Mahathir's inspiration on the East countries such as Japan and South Korea. Last but not least, the fourth features of Asian value as a political ideology by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is about respect for authority. Authority means a group of people that have official responsibility for a particular area of activity. Authority is important to ensure the stability of the state itself. Tun Dr. Mahathir stated that important to have strong authority to ensure that the society can be protected. They have a few methods to gain respect for authority. Firstly is starting between the families. The respect for authority can begin from the home itself, which is between the families. The children need to respect their elder in the house. The respect can help to make the bonding within the family become strong. This can help to gain a harmonious environment in the house itself. We can see that why Mahathir is so emphasized the features in the Asian value that is respect for authority. For him, the strong authority can help to form the good administration that can help to protect the individual right as well as the welfare for the society to be secure. Furthermore, the other method to gain respect for authority is by the democracy in our country. In terms of politics, we can see that respect for authority is important because it can help to make nation become a better country. The authority can be seen in this way: the public select the representative. Nation known as a democracy country, the public have right to select their representative based on their preference. The candidate that win the majority vote can become the representative, and the more win that the party get, the higher chance them to be a government. This have happened during the PRU 14 or January election 14, that the first time Barisan Nasional defeat, and that time Pakatan Harapan led by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad become the government. The defeat of Barisan Nasional based on their own fault. For example, the abuse of power, the corruption such as 1MDB scandal and all that do make them lose from the respect for the public. We can see during the election, the public doesn't vote the Barisan Nasional because they don't trust them anymore. For Mahathir, to gain the respect for authority, they need to gain the trust from the public first. During the general election, we can see that how the Mahdi influence the public, especially the young generation, that they can do the reform that the public want. In this way, how the Mahdi gain the respect from the public based on the authority. Lastly, the way we respect for authority is followed by the rule and regulation that already been stated in the federal constitution. It is because of the rule and regulation that been made in the federal constitution is based on the discussion in the parliament. The law also mostly come from the complaint and concerns from the public, but the present by the representative in the parliament. It is because when the public respect the rule, this show that the citizen also respect the authority. This will lead to the better country as well help to develop Malaysia. It can be seen that rule and regulation is one of the important aspects in order to influence the public to respect for the authority. In conclusion, we can see that one of the features of action value as a political ideology advocated by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is respect for authority.
As for the conclusion, Malaysians feel that our culture, tradition and political realities should be free from the universalism and the Western liberalism influence. The Mahathir model was a representation of Tun Dr. Mahathir vision about Asian value, which is based on Malay Islamic culture, universal human rights, ethnic and education, as well as the respect of authority. According to Mahathir, he believed that a society belief and culture will determine whether it's the success or fail, and that any culture may change. The Mahathir model was successful in changing Malaysian attitude, and it continued to play a role in this country modernization and growth to this day. Thank you, and that's it.